Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. I got my stepsister Karen kicked out of school. After that, the time a tenant had my car towed. And after that, not giving me the files I need? Okay, I'll do as you wish. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets sent to the principal's office. As long as he doesn't look like you, sign me up. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. I got my stepsister Karen kicked out of school. I'm 15, female, and my stepsister is 17. We attend the same private high school. I'm in my second year. I skipped a grade, and she is in her first year. She's been held back for 2. Our school is very demanding. Last year, she was almost expelled for her low performance. She even had a meeting with the principal and teachers to decide if she would stay. I was chosen by our parents to vouch for her, but I refused to because I have a good reputation and I didn't want to lie to my teachers. She did face consequences for her low performance, but was given a second chance. This year, she was acting the exact same as last year, all the time just on her phone and not even focusing in class. But last month, to everyone's surprise, she got an almost perfect grade on a paper. We were all happy for her, and stepmom even printed out her paper and put it on the fridge. I was a bit surprised by the topic she chose because it was the same topic I chose last year. I was curious and decided to read her paper during breakfast. It gave me an odd feeling when I was reading it. I get this weird feeling when I read something that I've already read before. But I had a lot on my plate already and I just let it go. That same week, she got another good grade, but this time it was different. This story was about one of my personal favorite memories, and this time I recognized it immediately. So I confronted her right away. At first, she denied it, but I brought my notebook and showed her the exact same text. She admitted to it, but stepmom defended her, trying to say that I was lying. She got those grades because she had a problem with her notebook and I had lent her mine. Even my father was against me. They didn't punish her and I was forbidden to report her. I was mad and I stopped speaking to them. A week later, I needed to use the sharing tool in my computer and realized she was using that to steal my work. At first, I just turned it off, but then I decided to make her get caught. I took the next 5 tasks that were her next ones and edited them. I took off citations, put a few insults here and there, put pure plagiarism, and turned sharing on again. Well, she got caught, and our parents and her had to attend an emergency meeting. She ended up confessing and lied, telling them that I gave her my old work. I told them the truth, and they trusted me because I have a good reputation. She was expelled in the act. She's blaming me for everything. Our parents are furious with me, especially because it will be hard to find a new school for her now, and her record of failing 2 years plus an expulsion will do no good for her. I was fine with my conscience, but my favorite aunt told me I was wrong, and I should have just denied her access to my work, and it wasn't right to do this to family. So, people of the internet, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her stepsister? Please let us know. Worst parents of the year right here. The time a tenant had my car towed. About a year before the whole lockdown thing, I lost my government job. I am an audiologist, and so I had little doubt I would find work. But I also knew my best bet for top earnings as to work for myself. So I secured my financing, sold a bunch of stocks and mutual funds that had done pretty well, and set about finding a property. My plan was to open a practice, but buy a building that had rentable space to help bring in additional revenue stream. I eventually came upon this great little building in the heart of downtown with a nice big parking lot. The building was a former commercial garage. The giant bay doors where trucks used to come in and out of were replaced by these really nice walls full of windows that still open like garage doors but formed a covered space in front of the unit. This is relevant for later. I knew the property just from being around town and I thought they looked really cool. They are crisp and modern and, in my opinion, have a cool Scandinavian feel to them. As I roll up to take my first tour with the realtor and the owner, I pull into the parking lot as instructed, and the second I step out of my car, I see a woman rushing out of the building toward me. I'm wondering, is this the owner? Someone who works for the owner? No, it's a woman with a face full of piercings loudly telling me that I need to move my car now or it will be towed. I have a meeting here, I began. She would have none of it. "Move it now, or I call the police," she said. I was about to move my car when the realtor and the owner on the other side of the lot called over and began walking toward me. She immediately retreated before they got close enough for us to work all of this out. I clarified that I was okay to park there, and they confirmed it was fine. I asked who that was, and they told me that she owns one of the shops in the unit. "Just ignore her," the owner said. "She thinks she runs this place." And the realtor and owner shared a chuckle. I walk the property and we go over some things, and life is good. I get in my car and leave pretty convinced this is the place I need to buy. Because I also intended to house my practice there, I agreed to lease one of the units and start getting set up while all of the closing stuff that needed to happen could be completed. So for about 2 months, I was a tenant, just like all of the other tenants. I never really got into the fact that I was buying the building because my interactions with my neighbors were polite, but transactional. Well, mostly polite. The woman with all of the yelling, let's call her Megan, was none too pleased with my presence. She owned a store that sold custom-made, well, costumes, I suppose. Lots of steampunk outfits and period costumes that she makes herself. Impressive work though, honestly. I have to imagine she does most of her trade online since I seldom see people in her place. I was there not more than a week when she barged into my unit and began making sure I was aware that the parking lot was not for customers and was for them only, and I was only allotted one spot. I said, "Thanks, but I have parking all worked out with Gus, the owner. I appreciate your concern," and I showed her the door. The parking lot, which I was purchasing along with the building, has 60 spaces. There are 5 units. According to her, we are each allowed one parking space and no customers or visitors are permitted to park there at all. So I know there are either shenanigans afoot or this lady is lying to me. Anyway, I ignore her. Time passes. I close on the building. Gus sends out a heartwarming thank you email to all tenants saying he appreciates their years of business together, but that the property is now owned by My Company Name, LLC, of which I am the owner. Pretty clear stuff. The first thing I did was I did a reorg of the parking lot. Each unit gets one regular parking space, primo spots right next to the building. There are 2 15-minute loading spots back there as well. I designated the next 5 closest spaces to handicap parking. The rest was just parking. My long-term plan is to put in one of those automated parking kiosks so people who are there to patronize the business can park for free, but anyone else will have to pay. But that's down the road. For now, I just needed to formalize some stuff and just accept that I may have some people parking there illegally, and if it becomes a problem, I'll just have to hit the security cameras to see who's doing this. Anyway, Megan is furious. She's furious that there are not enough handicap spots. There were none before. She's upset that she needs more than 15 minutes for a loading zone. Who's timing it? She's upset most of all, however, because she was never consulted. Flash forward a few days, and I parked on a non-parking spot. The sidewalk in front of my building is privately owned. Basically, you turn off the public sidewalk and walk down the private sidewalk to where all the businesses are. I parked on a paved patch next to my unit, on the far side away from the public sidewalk, accessible only by my parking lot. I parked there, with every legal right to do so, by the way, because I was unloading equipment. Since I own the space I was parked on and everything around it, I didn't move my car right after. I walk outside and my car is gone, so I immediately assume someone stole my car. Then there's Megan standing in her doorway with a big grin on her face. I ask her if she knows anything about my missing car. "Oh, was that your car? I saw a car parked illegally, so I had it towed." I said, "Laugh it up. Any expense is getting added to your rent." I went to the tow company that the prior owner hired, and I laid into him for towing anything from my property without authorization. His argument was that he had a contact with the property. He did not. He had a contact with the company that formerly owned the building that was now null. In the end, I knew arguing would get me nowhere, so I paid him and took my car. I left really upset, and my mind was solely focused on revenge. I began really scrutinizing my security tapes and discovered that all of these unaccounted for vehicles in the parking lot all had something in common: Megan. I had a suspicion that she was selling parking in my lot, so I waited by one of the cars until the guy arrived. I told him, as he walked from an area that was not my building, that he was not authorized to park there. He looked confused and told me to mind my own business, and he pays for parking. I introduced myself as the owner of the lot and asked who he was paying and how much. The answer was Megan and $125 a month. Suddenly, her business made a lot more sense. I thought of confronting her. I thought of just straight up evicting her. Instead, I hired a security company. They set up a temporary booth at the entrance of the parking lot, and a guard ensured that everyone was there for one of the businesses. If someone parked and wandered off somewhere else, they were told that they were going to be towed. Anyone who claimed they were paying for parking would just be turned away. What followed was around 24 very angry people in Megan's store over the course of the week. They paid good money for those spots, and now she was pulling out the carpet. People were upset. Megan lays pretty low for a while. Then lockdown strikes, and we're all rightly in fear for our livelihood. As soon as it was legal, I told the tenants they could open the big garage door and have a covered outdoor space for their trade. This was a necessary thing to keep them open and was outside the scope of their lease since they were not allowed to put in outdoor seating, etc. Everyone is super happy about this except Megan. Megan's unit is flanked by a coffee shop on one side and a little specialty bakery on the other. So you now have to walk around an outdoor seating area to get into her store. It's the same situation for my unit, however, and it just isn't that big of a deal. Megan is fuming. She starts calling the police multiple times a day, every day, for supposed lockdown violations on my part and the part of the other tenants. This was after, by the way, I said absolutely nothing about her being in her store and working, even when non-essential businesses were supposed to be closed. The cops started coming after her third or fourth call. At this point, I had enough. Her lease was up last May, and so I non-renewed it. She threatened up and down that she was going to sue me, and when she was done, the whole building would be hers. I responded by suing her for the $125 a month she collected from all of those people for parking. Best of all, she just didn't show up to court, and so it resulted in a summary judgment in my favor. I don't expect I will collect, though she abandoned at least a few $1,000s worth of inventory and equipment when she left, so that will help. Not giving me the files I need? Okay, I'll do as you wish. I worked at a company, let's just call it us, as a hardware engineer. Customers would contract us to design, redesign, repair, analyze, etc. their projects and modules and so on. One day, a big long-term customer, we'll call the company ABC, called, and it went a bit something like this. ABC: hello, we have a module which is not working. Can you analyze and fix it? Us: hello ABC, can you go into more detail? What exactly is not working? Is it hardware or software related? ABC: it's not working. Us: well, yeah, but what is not working? It's not working. All right. Can we have the technical document so that we can start analyzing them? ABC: no can do. But here's the faulty module. Me: how do you expect us to work on this module without having a clue what it's supposed to do? You'll figure it out. Okay, so basically this went on for about a week. After that, we just said okay. I asked my boss, since I was supposed to work on it, how I should go on with the task. My boss, crazy lovely guy he was, just said, you heard them, we have to figure it out. So complete reverse engineering of the module, and make sure you write down every single minute you work on it. Small side note for the non-tech savvy people here. A reverse engineering process is the long and tedious process of tracing every single copper trace on a board, basically starting with the finished product with the goal to redraw the schematics for it. Think of it like having a meal with 5 courses and in the process of eating, figuring out the exact steps the cook took to make it. So I did as my boss said. I re-engineered the whole module, drawing my own schematics for it, figuring out the inner workings, even taking a ROM dump, basically deassembling the machine code into readable source codes and tracing down the workings of the software as well. This whole process took something like 4 to 5 months for me and 2 others just reverse engineering this crazy module. After that, we finally started working on the errors and found out that there was a bug in the software causing the processor on the module to reboot like every 2 seconds. A bit of research showed that this module was part of an industrial controller system. Let's just say that if they were to put these modules anywhere in there, a lot of people would be without power. So after finding the error and fixing it by literally changing one line of code, writing the report and rescheduling a meeting with the client, I got back to my boss, who was following my working hours really carefully for the project. It turned out there were a lot of work hours for that project. Through the grapevines, I heard the total cost of the client was totaling well over $300,000. So the meeting began and we presented our findings, showed the whole process we did, including the reverse engineering. This time we spoke to different people as to the ones who gave us the project. This time, the CEO of ABC was within the meeting too. At first, he asked where we got the schematics because they didn't look like they were made with their templates. We told them that we weren't given the documents, so we had to re-engineer everything. Easy to say, the CEO was livid. He immediately asked who told us that we couldn't get the documents. We told him. He thanked us, made sure we were paid 10% more than we billed, and hung up. The fallout came to us via an email from the CEO himself. He apologized to us that we had the hassle of re-engineering. Also said that if we ever have trouble like this again, we are free to contact him directly. Also, the guy who said, "You figure it out," apparently got fired on the spot. Least to say that even if it was a lot of work, I really have to grin every time I remember this. This happened about 3 years ago, and since then I quit the job to study to become a state-certified technician. After that, I will happily go back to the company since working there was a charm. Also, on a side note, after talking to the CEO of ABC and getting a few documents, we discovered that this software bug was over 9 years old in a safety first over anything else industrial controller system. Who would have thought? Also, as a lot of people can't get their head around the 10% overpay, I'm not the CEO of the client, so I don't know the exact reason. But in the sector I was working, a good relationship to your contractors is invaluable. Also, ABC Company wasn't really a small player, so it is definitely no big cut in their funds. But when employees messed up and made the contractors you worked with for years do extra work, which is utterly unnecessary, you might want to compensate them in order to keep relations good. It is nothing unusual, as I have heard of similar things from friends and even from other clients I worked really closely with. If you don't like it, you can quit. In high school during the late 90s, I was a server at a pizza chain with a red roof. At the time, this place had a dine-in service. We had a GM, Ray. Ray was a nice guy, but he was better on the business/financial side of the market than managing employees. People generally got their work done, but in retrospect, everybody that worked under him was young, and we probably didn't give him the respect he was due. Eventually, Barb showed up. She was an assistant manager from a nearby store that had closed. Barb wasn't like Ray. It was like she was hired to come in and crack a whip over all of us. Never a please or thank you for anything. Forget, if you have time to lean, you have time to clean out the walk-in fridge and rinse it from floor to ceiling. On Fridays and Saturdays, the restaurant didn't close until 1 a.m. These were generally the busiest nights. However, I was 16 to 17 at the time, and I walked to and from work. My parents said that under no circumstances did they want me working past 11 p.m. They didn't want me walking home after 1 a.m. and risk being hit by a drunk driver or some other idiot out at those hours. I had already been attacked by a homeless guy one Friday night that year. This limitation was written into my file by Ray. We had several other teen servers with similar scheduling limitations, but it was usually okay. Things started dying down at 11, and the adult servers were happy to take all the late tips themselves. One Friday, it's 9:45, and we're still swamped. Mean old Barb is managing. My tables are mostly wrapping up, so I inform Barb I need to come off the floor if she expected me to do any side work that night. She says to me that I need to keep serving and do my side work, and I can't leave until the side work is finished. I remind her that I must be out of the door at 11 p.m. If I'm not, there's a high likelihood my parents will make me quit this job, especially after I was attacked by that homeless guy. It's just too busy. If I take more tables, there's no way I can do side work. Plus, I just have to hand off those tables to the adult servers anyways, so there's really no point in me taking more tables. Barb blows up at me. She starts screaming loud enough for customers to hear about how kids these days are a bunch of babies and how she hates that helicopter parents won't let their kids do real work anymore. After that tirade, she says, "You have work that needs to be done. You need to stay and do it. I don't give a hoot what time it is. If you don't like it, you can quit." For some reason, her saying that felt like a smack to the forehead. I don't like this job. There are plenty of other minimum wage jobs I could be doing that would work with my schedule limitations. I'm a teen just doing this job for scratch money. Forget her. I reach into my server apron and move all my tips into my pants pocket. I untie the apron and place it on the front counter. Her eyes get huge, and all I remember coming from her was the screech of, "What? What are you doing?" I tell her I'm doing what she said. I don't like it, so I'm quitting. Cue more screeching. She's so loud the entire restaurant can hear her. At that point, I just turn around and walk out, letting the door of the restaurant close and muffle her screeching. I make it home before 11 p.m. Ray calls me the next day to get my side of the story. I explain everything. He says he understands, and he backs me up that she shouldn't have tried to make me stay. He asks if I could at least come in and work the Saturday dinner rush, but I told him I wouldn't set foot in that restaurant if Barb was there. He said that Barb was managing that night, so I chuckled and said, "Well, that's your problem." A week later, I get another phone call from Ray. Over the course of that week, Barb yelled at 2 other teen employees of the restaurant for similar reasons, causing one to quit. She apparently also nearly got into a fight with an adult server because she called that server a name and said she was going to slap the taste out of their mouth. The final nail in the coffin? 2 customers called to complain that their carry-out pizzas appeared to have cigarette ashes on them. Managers usually worked the registers at this store, which meant they also cut and boxed to-go orders. Apparently, on less busy nights, Barb would smoke while behind the counter. She was caught on video multiple times in one day with a cigarette hanging out of her mouth as she cut the pizzas. Suffice it to say, Barb got fired. Ray was calling everyone back that had quit to see if they wanted to come back. Me? I declined. I had already found a gravy gig working at an antique mall. I didn't make tips, but I made a better hourly rate, so the money was more consistent. Don't want to pay a sale price? Fine by me. I work for one of North America's largest aftermarket auto parts stores, one that begins with an N and has a blue and yellow logo. At this job, for a few times a year, we have what's called a bucket sale. This bucket sale acts as a marketing gimmick and is meant to entice people to buy more than what they need. If you have 3 or more items, you can fit them into a 5-gallon company-branded bucket, and the price of your entire order is reduced by 20%. In all honesty, it's a pretty good deal for what it is. The only caveat is that you're required to purchase the bucket for $2.99. Most customers that I mention this sale to are usually surprised and impressed by the generosity, especially since I don't follow the "at least 3 items must fit in the bucket" rule, as I prioritize getting a customer out of the door with a smile on their face. $200 battery? How about we make that $160? $50 headlight bulbs? Nah, forget that. Take them home for $35 and get a free bucket out of it. The reason that I say that most customers enjoy this is because there's a handful of customers who would either not deal with having to carry a large bucket with them or simply don't understand the proposition that I'm trying to offer. Fair enough, maybe they've had a tough day or don't want to be bothered with paying less for more. It's no skin off my back. Usually this isn't a problem, except for today. Not for a certain customer that I'll refer to as Karen. Karen walks into the store, is friendly throughout the entire exchange, and knows exactly what they want. This is always a pleasant experience, as I can't stand customers who dawdle around and only accept service on their own terms. As she's ready to make her purchase, the following exchange occurs. Me. Okay, so right now we're looking at a total of $68.98. However, if I sell you a bucket, your order drops down to $56.89. Karen. What do you mean? Why is it cheaper? Me. I have a store-wide sale that's in effect if you buy a bucket. But I don't want a bucket. I want this stuff. That's fine. You don't have to take one with you. But why would you still charge me for a bucket if I don't want it? It's policy. I can't complete this ticket under the sale price without incorporating the bucket. So why am I paying almost $70 when you just said the total was $56? Because I can't. Either way, I imagine you still want to buy this stuff. Not if you're going to try to rip me off by selling me an unnecessary bucket. Can I speak to your manager? So I get my manager and tell him what's going on before he talks with her. Manager has no patience for this kind of an attitude. Manager. Hi there, ready to go? Karen. Yes, but I don't want to buy a bucket. Manager. Okay, that'll be $68.98. Karen has hurt herself in confusion. But I want the sales price. You don't want the bucket, which means you don't get the sales price. Karen looks at the bucket pile. In frustration, she puts down a $100 bill. Manager, while dispersing her change. It's a good thing you didn't want that bucket. There wouldn't have been enough money to give you your change back. A dejected Karen then leaves the premises. Oh well, we tried to help her. Don't leave your department during shift. This happened back when I was 18 and 19, so best part of 15 years ago. I was working for one of the big 4 supermarkets in the UK, doing a 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. shift 4 nights a week. I was on the beer, wines, and spirits section. In the October, I went to the warehouse to get some more stock to put out, and the phone rang at the BWS section of the warehouse, which was behind a locked door, because theft. I answered it, and it was the store manager. The conversation went a bit like this. Manager: Ram, why aren't you in your department? Me: I'm getting more stock to put out. Manager: If we were fined £5,000 for you not being there, would you pay it? Me: Wouldn't it just be cheaper to have someone else working alongside me than pay a fine? I don't want you leaving that section during your shift unless you have someone to cover. Me: So stay there all shift? Yes. Brilliant. Just brilliant. The first time in 18 months that manager stays late and has his shift overlap mine, he has a go at me for doing my job. Then I remembered that I was a lazy person and that I'd do what he said. So for the rest of my shift, I just stayed in the BWS section. Didn't get anybody to cover at all. At the start of my shift, everybody else was on checkouts, and the late crew were never willing to lend a hand. So it started in October, then November. Maybe a few £100 in lost sales every night, and a backlog of stock that would have to be sorted out the next morning. Then came the best part, December. As you might know, people like a tipple around Christmas in New York. Supermarkets also like to put offers on drinks around that time too. I wasn't allowed to get more stock to put out, so certain drinks all sold out. I knew there was plenty of this stuff in the back, but I wasn't going to disobey manager, especially when I'd been doing such a good job until now. So those few £100 a night turned into thousands a night. I estimated that, in the week leading up to Christmas, I'd cost the store around £50,000 in 20 hours. That wasn't solely from lost drink sales, but the number of people who just dumped their trolleys, shopping carts, and left without buying anything. New Year passed with the same story, and Valentine's Day, and the entirety of March. Then, 2 weeks before Easter, manager stayed late to talk to me. Didn't bother when we were losing loads of sales, only in the few months before his contract renewal. Manager: Why haven't you been putting stock out for the last 6 months? Me: You told me not to. Why haven't you had anyone else cover? Me: I tried, but nights weren't interested. So why didn't you just go and get any stock? You told me not to. I didn't mean it literally. So then why did you say it? During that conversation, he didn't explicitly tell me to change what I was doing, so I didn't. Easter passed, as did his contract renewal date. At the start of June, the former deputy manager was now the store manager. The ex-deputy manager stayed late to talk to me on her second week in her new position and told me to go back to doing what I was supposed to be doing. I said, "Okay, Mum," and went straight into the warehouse. I forgot to mention that my mum was the deputy manager and hated the store manager because of how he treated the younger members of staff, and says she let regional management know about it at the annual review. Reading the menu. I work at a casual sports bar in the lovely state of Florida. We get a nice mix of locals and tourists, and things tend to run pretty smoothly. This week has me wondering if some of our adult guests can actually read a menu though. I've never had so many similar instances happen in such a short period of time, and it really has me scratching my head. For background, we use a QR code that links directly to our menu. You don't need a special app, and it's pretty straightforward. We even have Wi-Fi, so there typically isn't any issue with the process. I will always walk a guest through it, or bring a paper menu upon request after greeting the table. Our draft beers are also posted on a chalkboard in huge font, all 75-ish of them. The website where our menu can be found is also typed under the QR code. I genuinely think our management did a wonderful job of making sure menus were easily accessible, while also trying to accommodate touch-free options. You can't please everyone, but we are really trying. This week, I've had a woman with both the digital and physical menu in front of her order the French onion soup. We do not carry any soup, nor have we ever. She argued with me. An older gentleman with a paper menu in his hand kept attempting to order different versions of sandwiches that all included deli meat. We do not carry any deli meat, and I verbally listed our available sandwiches. He decided on a BLT. Still not on the menu, but I gave up and asked a favor of the kitchen. It's like he was actively trying not to look at the menu. A younger, very polite man wanted me to list our beers on draft. I gestured to all 75, maybe more, and laughed, but explained how the board was set up. He then asked me to just list the IPAs. I then listed all 23 IPAs from lowest to highest because honestly, it wasn't busy, and I thought maybe he would have me stop when it got excessive. But no, I got through them all. He needed a minute because apparently it was a lot of information to take in. A couple ordered frozen strawberry daiquiris, and I explained that we do not have a blender, so no frozen drinks, but pointed them to our cocktail menu and suggested some fruity tropical options. Their next request was a mudslide. Another couple were super pleasant and their kids were sweet. Everything service-wise was great, and I wasn't expecting a curveball, but upon picking up their checkbook, I found a note about how it's ridiculous we charge for chocolate milk for kids. It's listed as an upcharge on the kids menu, but their kids didn't even order off the kids menu. Of course it's going to cost something. A group of ladies were shocked that I didn't warn them that happy hour didn't apply on the weekend. They didn't ask about happy hour and didn't even order anything that would have been included on it, given it were the correct day and time. Maybe I just had a long weekend and I'm being dramatic, but why would we bother with the menu if it didn't matter? Just look at it. Thank you for listening to my rant.
Click this button to join as a member and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
And watch this video next. You won't believe what happens.